Hi everyone. Writing teaching strategies are instructional approaches to teaching writing, and in this tutorial I'm going to go through several different writing strategies. I'm going to talk about modelled writing, shared writing, interactive writing, guided writing, independent writing, and the language experience approach. Each of these strategies has a different role to play in developing writing, and all levels of development can benefit from all the strategies if the skill development is aimed at their level. Okay, let's start with modelled writing. Modelled writing is when the educator does the writing while the children observe. This can happen on a whole class basis or in a small group. Every child must be able to see what the educator is doing so that they can see all the words as they're being written and see how the ideas are put together to create a meaningful text. Any type of text or length can be used, and often this will depend on the children's ability. It could be a word, a sentence, a paragraph, or a whole text. There should be a clear writing focus. It isn't possible to highlight everything at once in a modelled writing session, as the children just can't take it in. So it might be the text structure, a procedure, or writing a sentence, including a capital letter and a full stop. It could be including adjectives in their writing to make it more interesting. Demonstration accompanied by explanation of the thinking behind writing gives children the opportunity to hear what's going on in the writer's mind so that they know that writing involves thinking. It's important to limit the amount of thinking out loud you do to what supports the particular goal that you've chosen. Otherwise, you're providing too much information and the children can't work out what's involved in achieving that goal and what isn't. So an example of something you might say if you're thinking out loud would be, I finished my sentence. I must remember to put a full stop. Or if you're writing a procedure, I've listed my materials. Now I need to write down what to do. When choosing what to write, it's important to use something familiar or a class experience that everybody's had, as it's easier to understand the skills being taught if it's not a loaded task. That is one where they're having to take in new information as well as everything else. All levels of development benefit from being involved in modelled writing. You can find information about how to structure a modelled writing lesson on pages 450 to 451 of the e-text. Okay, moving on to shared writing. Shared writing is when the educator does the writing, but the children are invited to contribute ideas and make suggestions about the content and the composition. Shared writing can also be done on a whole class basis or in a small group. The educator scribes while the children, with the educator's help, supply the content. The educator assists children to think about and clearly verbalise the information that needs to be recorded. Any text can be used, with the goal being to create a text that is well written in content and form. The relevance of topic is important, so children have sufficient knowledge to be able to contribute. This strategy is great because it allows children to focus on developing the content of the text without actually having to record it for themselves at the same time. This is really the first step in developing their own skills. Discussions are central to this type of lesson, but educators shouldn't impose their ideas on the children, but rather find ways to lead the children into considering different options. Watching the educator repeat their sentence and slowly record it assists the children in learning about the connection between thinking, oral language, and written language. The educator regularly rereads and evaluates the text as it's been written. What students learn will depend on their level of development. For example, a beginning writer might learn about left to right, top to bottom orientation or spaces between words, while a more advanced learner might learn spelling strategies, different types of sentences or punctuation. You can find more information on structuring a shared writing lesson on pages 453 to 454. Interactive writing is a form of shared writing. It's still a joint composition and recording of a short text by the teacher and the children. The difference is that interactive writing is done in small groups and that the children have the opportunity to share the pen with the teacher at different times to record some words or some aspect of the writing, such as punctuation. The teaching methods are the same as shared writing, and there should still be a goal in mind for that lesson. Guided writing is when children write their own text. As they do, the educator works with small groups, guiding them about particular aspects of writing. It might be that the whole class is writing and a small group is with the teacher, or the whole class might be doing something independently while the teacher works with a small group, just the same way as guided reading. The group works with the teacher. They all will have a similar writing need or similar developmental level. Similar writing level means that the children are all at the same stage or phase of learning to write, where developmental need means that the children all need to be learning the same skill. Children in developmental needs groups may be at very different stages of learning to write, but they might all need to learn about adjectives or joining words with a conjunction. When working with the teacher, the goal is specific. It could be an element of the writing task, such as planning what to include and the order in which things are going to be recorded, or it might be a specific skill. It might also be something that they are not able to do independently yet. So this is where Vygotsky's zone of proximal development comes into play again. Guided writing provides students with the opportunity to use their own initiative in writing and apply what they've learnt about writing, including new skills and techniques they may have learnt in a modelled and shared writing. It's useful for children at all levels of learning to write, even much more proficient writers in upper primary. There's a format for structuring a guided writing lesson on page 460 to 461 of the e-text. Independent writing is when the children write their own texts while applying and practicing new skills, strategies, and knowledge already learnt at modelled, shared, and guided writing levels. It provides sustained practice with various components of writing and encourages writing fluency. The educator monitors progress and assists individuals if it's necessary, and also conducts writing conferences as the children write, or sometimes afterwards. Writing conferences are when the educator works with a child or a small group to help them improve the quality of the text that they've written. They take place at a point of need while the children are writing, or afterwards. They can also allow children, the teacher, time to monitor and assess the children's progress and make note of any strengths and weaknesses so that they know what they need to teach next. It usually begins with the child reading their writing and the teacher providing some sort of feedback. If it happens during the writing session, following the conference, the children would continue with that writing task. The final strategy I wanted to mention is the language experience approach, or LEA. This is a particularly good approach for beginning and emergent writers. And the foundation of this strategy is that oral language is vital and helps children to understand the relationship between speaking and writing. It starts with an experience such as cooking, playing with new materials, excursions, science experiments, dressing up, that sort of thing, and that becomes the stimulus for the children to write about. During the experience, the educator scaffolds the oral language with new vocabulary relating to the context. They encourage language for different purposes, to describe, to get things done, social interaction, and so on. After the experience, the educator and the children have further conversation to extend and consolidate the language that's been used. Discussion and retelling the experience, retelling what's happened, they learn about sequence of events, descriptive vocabulary, past tense, and the educator is modelling sentence structure. Then comes the visual representation. Individually, the children draw or paint a picture to represent part of the experience. They talk about the picture, ask questions, talk about their feelings. And then there's the writing of the text. The children make up a sentence or two to go underneath the picture to describe the experience. The educator writes the words beneath the picture, writing exactly what the children have said. We don't alter it. During scribing, the educator may discuss concepts about print, such as directionality or spaces between words, as well as how to represent sounds in words. The educator then reads it back, and the child reads it too. Sometimes the children will copy the scribed writing underneath so that they can have a go at writing also. This is really a strategy for emergent learners, the literacy learners, children with second languages, and it's also really good for children with literacy difficulties. I hope this has been helpful. If you have any questions, let me know.